Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today, I would like to talk about one of the most interesting and, for me, frustratingly amazing and simultaneously terrible television shows of all time, the Gilmore Girls. To be fair, I have only gotten through about 2 or 3 seasons of the show. And so my opinions about it that I'm going to share with you today are, squarely within the purview of what I've seen. I haven't seen the final seasons. I haven't seen Rory go off to college. I haven't seen the reboot season where we see everybody 10 years later. I don't know what happened in any of those. But on the basis of the first 2 to 3 seasons, I really found myself thinking a lot of complex thoughts about both the virtues and pitfalls of the show, and I thought it would be worth just airing them out because I've never really felt so simultaneously enthralled with and frustrated by a single show before. So the basic thesis I have is that this show is actually 2 television shows happening at the same time, one of which is amazing and the other of which is terrible. So the 2 television shows that are happening simultaneously in the Gilmore Girls are the following. One is an intergenerational family drama that centers the voices of women and is a marvelous, nuanced, subtle bit of character acting and curious exploration of money and parental relationships and emotional self-regulation and coming of age, and it's wonderful. The other show is a totally ham-fisted, small-town pseudo-comedy that is so overwrought and over the top as to be consistently cringeworthy. So let me unpack that a little bit for you. So the thing I love about this show is the relationships that are established between Lorelai Gilmore, Rory Gilmore, and the grandparents, Richard and Emily Gilmore. I think that the complexities of this intergenerational family dynamic is one of the richest I've ever seen portrayed on television. In particular, I was consistently impressed and moved by the way in which Rory's academic excellence functioned as a kind of lens or conduit through which she establishes quite robust connections to her grandparents, circumventing the angst of her mother, and the way that that connection forced Lauren Graham's character of Lorelai Gilmore to reevaluate her own adolescent reactive emotional attitudes in the way she has dealt with her parents, their money, their stuffiness. And these dynamics are marvelously portrayed, not only through the dynamics of money and the way in which the grandparents use money to fund the grandchild's education, thereby to leverage their own impact and ability to connect with their daughter and their granddaughter, the resentment of that financial power by the daughter, even though she recognizes its necessity to help her own daughter succeed, and the way that money dynamic then influences the social dynamics which otherwise wouldn't exist, because as we know from the show, Lorelai has spent many years avoiding her parents and seeing them as little as possible. So throughout the first 3 seasons, I think these dynamics are just beautifully wrought and very subtle. And one of the things besides the dynamic between all 3 generations that I want to point out is the character of Lorelai Gilmore and her fast-talking, quasi-neurotic, anxious sort of mood. The way that particular characterization is a function of that individual trying to negotiate these complex intergenerational dynamics. But where the show goes wrong and where this other half, this dark half comes in, is where that particular form of characterization the sort of fast-talking, very agitated, very projected, very quick-talking sort of way is then universalized and plastered across the town of Stars Hollow, or whatever the place is called. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Because that entire town, the only thing that it needs to do is burn to the ground. When I watch this show, I consistently hope for some kind of natural disaster or some large-scale piece of arson to just wipe out large swaths of the town. And here's why. In particular, I want to single out the character of Taylor Deuce, played by Michael Winters, as just one of the most consistently awful characters in the history of television. This person shows up in a number of different circumstances, talking loudly from the throat without any diaphragm projection about nonsense. And this is consistent with a number of the town's supporting characters, including the couple of Jackson Belleville and Sookie, as well as Lane's mother, Mrs. Kim, who's the best friend of Rory, and Miss Patty, the dancing teacher and town gossip. These characters are so over the top, so idiosyncratic and loud that the nuance of the family dynamics is rendered hyper salient by contrast, which creates this weird kind of discombobulated yin-yang, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde vibe in the show that's actually really hard to digest, because we go from a Friday night dinner where the subtext intentions of 3 generations of Gilmores are being artfully nuanced to some absurd town celebratory event or reenactment or competition where all of these B-level overacted characters are just regurgitating one-liner nonsense that just completely erases all the subtlety and nuance of this other part of the show. And so for my money, whenever I watch it, I'm always in this polarity of just loving these female characters and their family struggles, to just wanting to put my head through the screen whenever I have to listen to one of these folksy town people walk into the local diner and just say something utterly absurd and irrelevant. And I know perhaps from a storytelling point of view that very contrast is the thing that is supposed to endear the show as a whole to us, but I've never been able to get over it. It's always just made me feel kind of queasy, to the point that I actually had to stop watching the show for some time because I just found it to be too ham-fisted and just heavy-handed and foot in mouth. And the contrast between the elegance and precision and carefulness of the character acting that's happening in the family dynamics to the utterly mundane, boring, loud, simplistic garbage that is the town itself was just totally discombobulating for me. Do people agree? Am I out on a limb here? I'm not sure. I don't follow the commentary on this show at all. This has just been my 2 cents, having watched about a third or a half of it. But again, just to wrap up, I've never seen something more remarkable and awful at the same time, which makes it a real challenge to watch, even if at times it is also an absolute pleasure. So I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about this. And if you have any other suggestions of music, TV, or film you'd like to hear me comment on, please just let me know in the comments, or feel free to send me an email at askprofessorsmith@gmail.com. All one word, all lowercase, askprofessorsmith@gmail.com. Okay, take care.